We've got some breaking news. The National Weather Service is now calling out Donald Trump and his lies and exposing him and Elon Musk for the role that they played in the deaths that happened tragically over this weekend from the floods in Texas. And we also have some more breaking news where Jeffrey Epstein is apparently back in the story because Axios is now reporting that the DOJ and FBI have concluded that Epstein had no, quote, client list and committed suicide. The reason why this is being brought up is because Elon Musk had to say that Donald Trump was in the client list, and it's one of the reasons why it wasn't released. And now Axios is reporting that the DOJ and FBI are saying, no, there's no client list. Well, you tell me who you think is telling the truth. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, or the Biden administration? Because the Biden DOJ actually said that they couldn't rule out the existence of a client list in the criminal sense. They haven't found evidence of such a document in their investigations, but they couldn't rule it out. So I don't know. And then we also have Pam Bondi in February who said the Epstein client list is sitting on her desk to review. She said the client list is sitting on her desk.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
She didn't say it doesn't exist. She says it exists and it's on her desk. And need I remind you that when Donald Trump was asked about releasing this stuff, he got a little iffy about it.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would
I
you,
did. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
What an eye.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on here, but the fact that President Trump's Department of Justice and FBI have concluded they have no evidence that convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful figures, kept a client list, or is murdered, according to the memo. I don't know if I believe any of that. I don't know if I believe it. And Pam Bondi said she saw it on her desk. Now, let's go to this other story. And you might remember that before any of this happened, before this tragic flooding in Texas, this meteorologist warned us that this would happen, and he went viral.
The sledgehammer attack on science in general, and I could talk about that for a long, long time, and how that is affecting the U.S. Leadership in science over many years, and how we're losing that leadership, and this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country, all right? But specifically, let's talk about the federal government cuts to the National Weather Service and to NOAA. Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed. Now, this type of staffing shortage is having impacts across the nation because there's been a nearly 20% reduction in weather balloon launches that carry those radiosondes. And what we're starting to see is that the quality of the forecasts is becoming degraded. There's also a chance, because of some of these cuts, that NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft will not be able to fly this year, and with less reconnaissance missions, we may be flying blind. And we may not exactly know how strong a hurricane is before it reaches the coastline, like happened a couple of years ago in Hurricane Otis in Acapulco, Mexico. So I was asked to talk about this today. I'm glad I was. I just want you to know that what you need to do is call your representatives and make sure that these cuts are stopped.
Well, they weren't stopped. They went through, and now we are seeing what happens when the government is underfunded or becomes a shell of itself, because the New York Times is now reporting that as the floods hit, key roles were vacant at the Weather Service offices in Texas. Let me read. Crucial positions at local offices of the National Weather Service were unfilled as severe rainfall inundated parts of central Texas on Friday morning, prompting some experts to question whether staffing shortages made it harder for the forecasting agency to coordinate with local emergency managers as flood waters rose. Former weather officials said the forecasts were as good as could be expected, given the enormous levels of rainfall and the storm's unusually abrupt escalation. The staffing shortages suggested a separate problem, however, and those former officials said the loss of experienced people who would typically have helped communicate with local authorities in the hours after the flash flood warnings were issued overnight. The shortages are among the factors likely to be scrutinized if the death toll climbs from the floods. The National Weather Service's San Angelo office, which is responsible for some of the areas hit hardest by Friday's flooding, was missing a senior hydrologist, staff forecaster, and meteorologist in charge, according to Tom Fahey, the legislative director of the National Weather Service Employees Organization. Thank you, Tom Fahey, for telling the truth at a time when the truth is so hard to get and so hard for people to say because they're afraid of the repercussions. So please leave a like on this video if you're grateful for Tom speaking out and giving us the truth, because otherwise we might not know this for sure. The Weather Service's nearby San Antonio office, which covers other areas hit by the floods, also had significant vacancies, including a warning coordination meteorologist and science officer, Mr. Fahey said. Staff members in those positions are meant to work with local emergency managers to plan for floods, including and how to warn local residents and help them evacuate. So until January, and then John Sockshit said, who until January, director of congressional affairs for the National Weather Service, said those unfilled positions made it harder to coordinate with local officials because each Weather Service office works as a team. So we are seeing the correlation between Donald Trump and Elon Musk slashing the federal government without any sort of intention other than to make it worse. Now people are literally dying. They're literally dying. And when Donald Trump was asked about this, if he's still planning to phase out FEMA, look at what he said.
Are you still planning to phase out FEMA?
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later, but right.
So he's not saying no. He's not saying no about getting rid of our disaster response. And let's not forget, too, that the guy leading FEMA has no disaster experience and was surprised to learn. Do you remember this? There's been so much. Do you remember this? He was surprised to learn the U.S. has a hurricane season. The FEMA staff baffled after Head said he was unaware of U.S. hurricane season, sources say. And just to put a pin on this, Kristi Noem, fake concern for Texans on behalf of the Trump administration, and I'm not even going to play this propaganda for you, but she just tries to pretend like they're sorry this happened when they are the causes of it. And here she is last week, not even a week ago, 5 days ago, saying Alligator Alcatraz will be funded largely by FEMA's Shelter and Services Program. So they took the money from FEMA that's supposed to go to help people who are in emergency situations from natural disasters and are putting it to locking up humans and putting them in fenced-in cages. That's the federal government working right now for all of us. Not working at all, and in fact, getting largely worse. If you like this video, please hit like in the video. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I'll see you next time. Bye.